So the White House offering bias to federal workers who refuse to return to office under President Trump's order, aiming to reduce the federal workforce and eliminate remote work policies implemented during COVID-19. Katie Miller, an advisor to the Department of Government Efficiencies, confirmed the email is being sent to more than 2 million federal employees. A senior administration official justified the move, stating we're 5 years past COVID and just 6% of federal employees work full-time in the office. That is unacceptable. The buyout will cover approximately 8 months of pay and benefits, according to NBC News, with White House aides estimating that between 5 to 10% of federal employees will take the deal. Axios reported that the plan could save taxpayers $100 billion annually. The buyouts follow Trump's recent freeze on federal aid and an attempt to pause grant disbursement, which a federal judge temporarily blocked. Rob, which clip do you have for this one? Because it's
I have a few. I have the tweet that you put out last night, if you'd like that video where Trump talks about people being fired if they don't return to the office by February 6th.
Put that one. Go for it.
Everyone knows most of the time they're not working, they're not very productive, and it's unfair to the millions of people in the United States who are in fact working hard from job sites and not from their home. As federal employees, they must meet a high standard. They're representing our government, they're representing our country. If they don't agree by February 6th to show up back to work in their office, they will be terminated, and we will therefore be downscaling our government, which is something that the last 10 presidents have tried very hard to do but failed.
Byron, thoughts on this?
It needs to happen. Period. Full stop. The biggest issue we have is you have a federal bureaucracy that seeks its own interests. During the first Trump presidency, they would literally look at the orders and slow walk them or ignore them altogether. Doing this now puts everybody on notice. You're not going to be able to sit at home and say you're working. We had I think it was the Office of Presidential Personnel, I think that's who it was, that came into oversight a year ago and testified in front of the Oversight Committee. And we kept asking her what percentage of the federal workforce is actually in the office at a minimum 30 hours a week. She couldn't answer. She did not have the information. And it's your job to know who's where. The policies around remote work are that you sign up for it. Not that they check that you actually log into it. Not that you're logged in for an extended session, which is very easy to do. They don't check that. It's just that you have the ability to do it. So, yeah, I'm all for it. If the workers won't come back into the office, because, by the way, we're paying the light bill on these buildings still. We're paying the heat bill on a lot of these buildings because they're in D.C. and other parts of the country. We're paying the insurance. We're paying the cost, the rent, because a lot of these we rent. We don't own these buildings. We rent them. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're not back, we need to downsize the office space of the federal government, and you can actually move that property for other purposes. We talked about housing in other parts of the country. Of course, Florida, you can reset some of these buildings if you have a really creative developer. But you also get the number of employees down who are entrenched, who quite frankly are the employees who fight us when we're trying to do the real reforms that this country desperately needs. The fight comes from the bureaucracy because they come in and say, oh, well, you can't do that. Well, why can't I? I'm a member of Congress. I got elected. You didn't. Why are you telling me I can't? Oh, because it's just how we do things. There was a book when I was at FSU, College of Business. They made us read. It's called Who Moved My Cheese?
Oh,
great book.
I read the book. Same time, same year, FSU.
That's right, 2002.
That's right.
That is essentially the issue we have in the federal bureaucracy. You have 2 million plus individuals who have their own political vision, and typically it is a very left-leaning political vision, and anything you do to upset the way they want to move is met with recalcitrance, just straight obstruction, quite frankly, leaking. That happens all the time in the federal bureaucracy. If something comes down they don't like, they start leaking to the press. So, yeah, if you ain't going to come into work, he's the chief executive, you're not going to show up, bye-bye. At least they're getting a payout.
By the way, you know what's wild when you're thinking about this, Tom? Do you remember 4 years ago, everybody was selling the idea of work from home is a great idea, and this is the fact that people don't accept it, and, Jack Dorsey coming out and saying permanently for the history of Twitter, you can work from home, you never have to come into the office. Oh, my God, what a noble CEO Jack Dorsey is, and then Elon Musk comes in. and half the company gets fired, 3,750 employees. And by the way, in this story that we're reading, Tom, and I'm coming to you here, this story that we're reading about White House workers getting this offer, an insider story, a Business Insider story, which we know Business Insider, which way they lean as well. They said Trump's government worker buyouts are feeling a lot like Musk's Twitter in 2022. All the stuff that they're doing, which means, hey, coming in, here's an offer, hey, move out the way. But one thing we are realizing very quickly, that common sense making a comeback, nobody works better from home than they do at an office. Nobody does. There's way too many distractions at home. Now, this doesn't mean some of you guys, when I say this, some entrepreneurs, well, let me tell you something. As a solopreneur, I'm a laptop entrepreneur and I do all this other stuff. Listen, I didn't tell you you don't have the right to go do it. I'm telling you, there's more efficiency when you're around your crew working together, and it's becoming very clear that maybe 10% of people are more efficient out of home, but 90% of them are abusing the privileges and they're being exposed. Tom, your thoughts on this?
Well, guess what? What everybody has found out after COVID, going back to work now, is coming to the federal government. And Congressman made a comment here that I want to amplify. There are buildings that your taxpayer dollars are paying for that need maintenance and are practically empty, but the leasing, the landscaping, the basic maintenance, and the power keeping it warm and cool for nobody, to work there is there. So when all of that comes back on the market, the cost for commercial building space in that market is going to come down a little bit. And maybe a business that is expanding, that needs to use the space, would appreciate a lease that comes down, because if the supply comes up, the price will come down. It's not going to crash, but it's going to come down a little bit. And it's going to come out of the taxpayer pocket, and that resource would be available for business people and businesses are expanding, or whoever needs that, like maybe schools in the inner city that need space. Point one. Point two is studies came out, and there was, I like to talk about it. There was an organization that failed, but it was at Verizon. It was Verizon Media, called Oath. And Tim Armstrong came out almost immediately and said, we have a lot of younger people that are early in their careers working here, and guess what? They're not getting promoted as fast. They're not developing as fast. They're not mentoring their people as well.
That's right.
They're not coaching their people as well, because they're not effing here.
That's right.
And he got out there, and because remember, Verizon was leaning with the FCC, leaning hard liberal, and they were really annoyed that, Oath, and it was Tim Armstrong that came out of AOL, I believe, sometime prior to that. But he put his neck on the line and said, look, this isn't working because people aren't getting mentored. So that didn't happen. Then they started looking at transactional work. How many calls per hour? How many policies processed per hour? And guess what? The facts weren't there. So all of this comment about, I was more effective from home, effective.
Right.
Yeah, be careful.
Oh, I'm so excited that this is being exposed.
Words like effectiveness were used. Feeling words were used. It wasn't numbers.
That's right. By the way, I'm telling you, when we were talking about
this on the podcast,
when we were talking about it on the podcast 4 years ago, 70% of America was convinced these guys were right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We took heat in our own
I was
comments.
like, you guys have no idea. You're so selfish. You're so this. Adam, your thoughts on this?
Well, here's the issue. And, you have a few words that you've coined for 2025. But your number one word was what?
25 or 24?
2025.
Year of surprises.
No, you said the year
product
of
speed signal. Yeah.
You said speed.
Yes.
And that's all I'm thinking about right now, because as Byron is basically explaining, he says they slow walk things down the aisle here. Yeah. The last story we just did in the segment here was in 2022, I believe Jon Stewart went onto the Colbert Show and he goes, you want me to believe that the Wuhan virus, the COVID, came from a bat and a pendulum and this, when down the street was the Wuhan lab? And he basically called out Legacy Media and called out the big pharma. And Stephen Colbert looked at like, oh my God. He said,
tried to shut him up.
3 years later, when everybody already knew what we already knew,
we're not stupid.
They're like, yeah, by the way, it did come from a lab. Okay, so what's the point here? Congress moves so slow. They're not using speed. These people, is anyone still using the work from home COVID excuse?
So
4 years after COVID, what is happening right now? And Pat, here's what I'll say to you. And because you probably get some pushback about working from home or not working from home. If you're an entrepreneur or you're working commissions and you actually have to eat what you kill, that's a big difference. You talked about do you work 30 hours a week from your house? It's a totally different vibe out there.
So you know where in the federal government where the workers have to show up for work every day, Capitol Hill. If you're a staff member for a member of Congress or House or Senate, you're in the office, especially when we're in town. Like if we're not in town, you might be at home because I'm not there. I can't see you. But when we fly in, the staff is there. There is not a member, Republican or Democrat, that I'm aware of that lets the staff work remotely. Do you know why? Because on Capitol Hill, the staff members for the Senate and for the House are at-will employees. I think there was a move, I think AOC and a couple of them tried to let their staffs unionize. And I remember this was like a couple of years ago. I think Pelosi was starting to float it or something. And I walked into and I love my staff, they're great. And I walked in, I looked at them and I said, let's be very clear about something. If you try to unionize, you're all going to be fired. There's no union here.
Yeah.
It is my way. It's my name on the door, and my name was put on this door by the people back home in the district. So I'm showing up, and you're showing up. Right. They didn't even question it. I just made sure everybody fully understood.
I wouldn't
the
expect
situation.
anybody from that community want to try to unionize, especially somebody that's wanting to work for you. They're philosophically they're going to be on your page. You know what's the only time I agree with working from home? If you're getting paid commission, go for it.
Yeah, if you can do it,
go for it.
You're going to get it.
If you're 1099, work from home if you want to do it. Go ahead. See if you can pull up the results or not.
Yeah.
If you don't sell, you don't make money, you want to stay home.
Stay
go ahead.
there.
I'm okay with that.
That's right.
That part makes sense. W-2, zero.
Yeah.
Zero. Do you know how many times we've had W-2 employees working from home that's been successful?
Zero.
I don't want to get into it right now because we just had a moment a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to be telling stories, but the answer, Tom, look at Tom's face, everybody. Just look at his face, how red his face got real quick. Yeah, not because it's Tom, because we asked somebody a question and it was...
Although it might be Tom.
Yeah, but the point is that I am so glad all these things that people were trying to convince you that was good. Leave your job and go ask who cares, but threaten them that if you don't do this and you're going to say, listen, we had a guy that we hired him for $55,000. 60 days after working with us, a recruiter calls him and says, I have another job for $75,000. So my CEO at the time fears losing him because he doesn't want to go back and do the job of finding another person. Says, we have to give this guy $75,000 offer. I said, you just started working with me 3 months. This is how you gain credibility or lose credibility with me. I'll let you make the decision. What do you want to do? Let's give him the raise. Go ahead. Let's see how you handle this. 90 days later, the guy comes back and says, if you don't give me a $120,000 raise, I got an offer to work from home. Another company, $120,000.
Man.
So then he doesn't. The guy goes back. Do you know those people that did that? When you go and do an interview and somebody says, so tell me about the last 4 years where you worked, and you hear the employee saying the following story. Well, I stayed home taking care of my dad because he was not doing well. No, it's called you had 8 jobs. You don't want to tell us you had 8 jobs. Mm-hmm. I ran a consulting firm for the last 2 years. No, you didn't. It's called you had a bad experience at a job. You don't want to put them as a reference because I'm going to ask you, can I call your boss at the previous job? You can't put that out. These are red flags you'll learn of people that abused companies. When there's a big break in someone's resume, ask specifically what happened during that time. And if the story goes to, I was taking care of an aging elderly parent, and they have a wife and 3 kids, then how did you fund your expenses to do that? I ran a consultant from, can I talk to 3 of your clients that you did consulting job for? Right. Well, it was private because we signed an NDA and, okay, I got it. You hear these scripts and you're like, you know what, guys, too many red flags. I'm not interested in this guy. Let's move on to the next person. That's what happened during that time, and employers are now getting smarter, asking questions to not be abused of the abuse that we took 4 years ago because it was real. So the guys that stick around, take care of them. The guys that stay loyal, take care of their families. The guys that were playing those games, that reputation is going to follow you for many, many years to come. When you go to vtnews.ai, first 100 days, if you can go to first 100 days. By the way, I think we have 89 days left. Can we just do this question real quick here together? I'm going to vote for mine as well because I think I'm up to date. And my ranking, man, I am way behind with everybody. But what is today's question, Rob, the prediction today?
Will Trump make an in-person appearance at the Super Bowl?
I'll give mine. I'm going to say my answer is a in-person it's saying.
Yes, he's showing up.
I say yes.
Me too.
Is what I'm saying.
Especially with Chiefs and Mahomes.
And that's for 590 points. Gang, go to vtnews.ai and post your prediction. Here's what we're going to be doing, just so everybody knows, okay? We decided to run a contest behind this, and this will go for the first 100 days. So for the winner at the end, when you win, the end of a PBD podcast, you'll join us for 10, 15 minutes to tell us how you made all these predictions correctly, okay? And the competitors in the top 10 cannot be Valuetainment or Lion Holding employees, okay? If they are, and a lot of them are participating, they're not going to be able to compete in this. It's anybody that's not part of the company that'll compete for this. So if you win, you're the top Nostradamus, you'll be invited to come on the show with us and tell us how you were able to make these predictions. What do you have access to that we don't have? What did you use? Did you use ChatGPT or maybe DeepSeek? What were you using? And then the top 10 predictors with active subscriptions to VTnews.ai, you will be invited on your own. Find a way to come down here. We'll pick a date. You'll come out with the launch of our cigar lounge that we're doing in our comedy club. You'll be invited. We'll go to the back of the VIP cigar lounge. We'll have a cigar together. We'll spend 2-3 hours together. The whole crew will be there. Conversations, talking, having a good time, having a drink at the new boardroom cigar lounge that we're launching that will be ready, and you will be invited to be a part of that. So again, go compete. There's still 89 days left on this, and there's going to be some accelerator points. So some of the questions will be 5,000 points, 1,000 points, 2,000 points. Put it in your calendar. Every day, 9 a.m., a new predictions being posted. So go to VTnews.ai, first 100 days, claim your predictions, subscribe to the membership. Either one of the subscriptions that we have that's paid, you'll be able to participate in this contest that we're running. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.